Do you know who I am? I'm kind of a big deal.
Hello, welcome inside another edition. It is the Bmore Baseball Podcast. I'm Jerry Coleman. He's the 14-year MLB veteran, the Orioles Hall of Famer. It's Mike Bordick. We're producing brand new content every day, each day, on X, on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. You can follow us at Bmore Sports Pod. That's Bmore Sports Pod. When you show us evidence and you follow us on YouTube, like Jeff last week, he got a $50 gift card from Lido Pizza because he showed us the evidence that he follows us at Bmore Sports Pod. Episode 33 is just ahead, Bordy. We're going to be joined by famed author Jane Levy. Mike and I will also discuss if the Orioles need to add a power-hitting DH or perhaps an outfielder. And we'll also debate just who is the American League MVP. Let's start with our featured guests, though. They are sponsored by Pappas Seafood. From crab cakes to seafood classics, they'll deliver straight to your door. 4 locations in the Baltimore area, plus nationwide shipping. Order today by going to pappascrabcakes.com. That's pappascrabcakes.com. And we welcome in famed author Jane Levy. Jane, appreciate you joining us. The latest book is called Make Me Commissioner. I know what's wrong with baseball and how to fix it. So I got to ask you straight off the bat here. There's the book for those watching on YouTube. What has the feedback been from the commissioner's office? And is this a subtle way of you throwing your hat into the ring to be the next baseball commish?
I don't think it's so subtle. Make me commissioner.
Please.
When Rob announced, I think it was a year ago, it'll be a year ago, January, that he would step down from his exalted post in after his current term expires in 2029. I thought, why not me?
Hey,
what about that? I mean, yeah, why not you, right?
Why not me? I think it's, first of all, it's time for a woman, and it's time for somebody from outside. It's like, like outside the Beltway. I am outside the MLB infrastructure. And as always, and I'll be serious I'll try for 1 second. You can't think the same ideas over and over again and think they're going to work better just because you've repeated them. They did some good things. It says in the book, they did some good things. It took them too long to get there, I think. And I don't think that goes far enough. I've been told by readers graciously that I'm old. In fact, not only am I old, I'm dying. But you're dying. Oh, no, not really, not yet. But I take their point. The generation of baseball fans that has supported the game fervently, through the 50s and the golden era of the 60s and on, is aging. It's aging out. And baseball needs desperately to replenish and rebuild a fan base. And in order to do that, they need to take some radical steps. And so my first move as commissioner, all kids age 10, accompanied by an adult, get in free. Can you imagine the PR coup the day that Rob or I goes to the podium and says, you know what? We mean it. We really want you back. Up until 2009, the Orleans franchise in the Cape Cod League was known as the Cardinals, the Orleans Cardinals. And I showed up one day, the following summer, in my Cardinals gear, only to find out that they were no longer Cardinals. Why were they no longer Cardinals? Why were the Chatham Anglers no longer the Chatham Mets, the team for which Buck Showalter was MVP? Because some lawyer at MLB had decided that it was a violation of law for them to use the name of MLB franchises while not using MLB sanctioned merch. So they were given a choice. The franchises on the Cape were given a choice. You either change your moniker and go ahead and use your local vendors who have been supporting you for 30 or 40 years, or you have to use MLB merch if you want to keep your name. So that is the kind of small thinking, monetizing of everything that drives fans crazy. Why wouldn't you think instead that having kids running around in Cardinals t-shirts is a good thing for MLB and for the Cardinals? So the woman who is the GM of the now Firebirds, Miss Sue Horton, who's a legend on Cape Cod, Boston Globe did a long profile of her, called her Cape Crusader. Said, like hell, we're doing that. And so she ate $60,000 of Orleans Cardinals, merchandise, rather than alienate the local people. Remember, these guys are nonprofit, rather than alienate the people in the town who had been supporting that franchise for decades. And that's the kind of thing that why? Who thinks that's a good idea? I understand there's trademark law. I get it. But, and it's a precedent. I understand. I used to be married to a lawyer. Okay. So, but, this was dumb. And it's the kind of thing they do, sort of non-thinking about what the consequences are all the time. And so when I'm commissioner, if Miss Sue wants to go back to being, Cardinals, okay. The only teams that didn't change their names were the YD Red Sox, which they obviously couldn't play as, change their name and survive on Cape Cod without being Red Sox, and the Mariners, because they preceded the Seattle Mariners. Wow. So those are the two franchises that still have their original names.
How can the Seattle Mariners still use that name then? If it was,
I was going to say, they ought to sue. They might get some money. You never know.
Yeah, there you go.
It's the lawsuit world, and it's petty and it's dumb.
Jane, thank you so much. You speak right from a lot of us baseball traditionalists, our heart. So thank you for your great words in your new book. I want to stick with this amateur theme, though, because I think baseball really dropped the ball, literally. When they started cutting minor league baseball teams, I felt like that was the lifeblood of baseball. That why it was the national pastime, because there was such a connectivity to community, and that's why young kids like to play it. And I think they are missing the boat there too.
You're not alone in that thinking. I share your thoughts. So does Joe Madden, for example. It's not just a breeding ground for future players. It's a breeding ground for future fans. And it's predicated on the assumption that you will somehow be able to watch baseball. You'll stream it, or you'll, get a satellite or whatever you're going to do, if you can find the games on all the many platforms in which it now exists, which is another problem.
Yes.
I spent 20 minutes last night trying to figure out where FS1 was on my dial, and I have every package, I swear to you. Make baseball findable, and make baseball findable in the parts of the country where they don't have a major league team to go to. Because in fact, minor league baseball is not only fun, it's more fun in some ways. They are the people who are doing the banana style stuff that everybody loves about the bananas, without corrupting, the purity of the game on the field. And I understand, again, it's money. It's all about money. It costs a lot of money to support a Class D team, for example, or Class C when Mickey Mantle started. Because, and if those kids get hurt, which they can, the medical expenses are huge. I understand all of that thinking. But if you're the Kansas City Royals and you have to compete with the Yankees or the Cubs or, whoever to get players, you need the bigger minor league system and the bigger pot of players from which you can try to cull raw talent that maybe went unnoticed somewhere else, and talent that you can develop. God forbid anybody develop talent, but they're basically leaving that to, college programs to do now. And so the vast majority of guys that are drafted now are from college programs.
Yes, I don't. Go ahead, Bordick.
That's another completely, I guess, entangled issue. The college baseball nowadays with the portal. Oh my gosh, to be honest with you, Jane, they don't develop in college either. They just fill their rosters with junior college players. They're looking for the older player. They're kind of treating it like a minor league system right now. It's really bizarre how baseball has structured itself. And unfortunately, I feel that they're just going to be running out of players down the road. The medical stuff, just the way the game is structured, they're pricing players out of the game as well. I mean, it's just a terrible mess we're in right now, I think, the way the game is.
Well, while at the same time wanting to expand, so that we're going to have more teams at a greater dilution of talent, and more teams in cities that are going to have a hard time supporting them. I mean, it's not like it's the fault of the Kansas City Royals or the Brewers or even the Tampa Bay Rays. They're located in small markets, and that that way back in the 1880s, a gentleman named William Holbert, who was intrinsic to the creation of the original National League, traded with the Rowdies who owned those franchises. He said, if you'll agree to some kind of uniformity in rules and rosters and scheduling, I'll give you the right to market locally without anybody, intruding upon that. And that's where the system of, depending on your finances, depending on what you can raise locally, came from. And, nobody thought about radio then, and radio didn't really raise that much money at the beginning, because after all, first game 1921 Pirates. Yeah, I know. And then, first World Series nationally broadcast 27. And then we went right into the Depression. So it's not like radio was generating huge dough, but then you come out of it and you start to have TV. Now, the newer, younger sports, the NFL, the NBA. Yes, there was an NFL franchise in New York City in 1927. And I know that because my father was the water boy for the New York Football Giants at the Polo Grounds. Yes, they're younger sports. They're not as stuck in a web of history. MLB is like, caught on its own petard, as it were. It's the history informs the sport. The history enabled the analytic revolution, and it also made it hard to change, because people who are considered traditionalists allegedly don't want anything to change. I am a traditionalist, but things have to change, and they were stuck, and they were in sand pits. They couldn't adjust when the revolution in broadcasting, first cable and then streaming, my God, came along. So they're stuck with this old RSV system. Is that right? RSV? Yeah, it is. Regional Sports Networks. Thank you. That is unequal. So you have the Dodgers with a 25-year, $8 billion television deal, which is why they can do what they did last year and last offseason. Mind-boggling. Yeah. And it still wasn't enough pitching, let me just say. And then you have the Royals. I'm not picking on them, but they were honest enough to tell me, we made maybe 40 to 50 million on our TV rights. So the inequities are built into a system that means, by April, May, half the teams are not going to be non-competitive. Shall we talk about the Pittsburgh Pirates?
Well, we could, but that's another podcast.
More of the Bmore Baseball podcast coming right up. At Pappas Restaurants, we've been serving up Maryland's best crab cakes for over 5 decades, and now we make it easier than ever to get your favorites. With 4 restaurants and sports bar locations across Harford County, Baltimore County, and Anne Arundel County, you can stop in for fresh seafood, ice-cold drinks, and wall-to-wall TVs. But if you can't make it in, don't worry. We'll bring Pappas to you. Our new state-of-the-art shipping and commissary location on Bel Air Road in Nottingham means you can pick up fresh-made meals or have our famous crab cakes and seafood shipped anywhere in the country. Dine in, pick up, or ship nationwide. However you Pappas, we've got you covered. Order now at pappascrabcakes.com. Shop Maryland's largest adult use and medical cannabis menu located at 1114 Cathedral Street in Baltimore, with medical delivery available throughout Maryland 7 days a week, only at Relief Shop.
I'm retired now, but I was an Orioles home run. Grand slam, actually. Took a sweet ride right into the flag court, and it was awesome. Could be awesome for you, too. If you play Home Run Riches from the Maryland Lottery, you could win instantly or be a contestant of the game and win $500 for being selected, $500 for every Orioles home run, and $5,000 for every grand slam. Sounds like a ball if you ask me. Enter all season at mdlottery.com.
Go back to something that you mentioned earlier and play off that in terms of the marketing of baseball and trying to encourage the next generation and maybe what baseball could learn from the Savannah Bananas and all their success.
So the Bananas, Jesse Cole, the man in the yellow tux, in the book, it says he has 7 of them. He's now got 2 more. Okay. So
you can afford them now.
Yeah, I'll say you can. He's brilliant. And he took a look at what was happening in baseball. And he was sitting actually on a bench in a dugout in Catuit. Remember that franchise in Cape Cod?
Oh, yeah.
And he sat there. He was an assistant coach. You know, his playing career had ended with a shoulder injury. You know, he's a pitcher. And he said, you know, I'm bored. This is sacrilege to sit on the bench as a coach and say, I'm bored. But in 2021, as we all recall, before the new rules changes, which were fabulous but late, there was 3 minutes and 52 seconds between balls put in play. That's nuts. As Theo Epstein said to me, you got 12 minutes to get a kid, a 6-year-old, to pay attention, and there's going to be 3 balls in play in that amount of time. Doesn't work. Jesse recognized and honed in on an alienation of affection between baseball fans who had grown impatient with the pace of the game and the pace of change in the game, and said, fans first, entertainment always. Now, their elixir of entertainment is, you know, family-friendly stuff like fat guys jiggling their fat around the bases, which I particularly don't enjoy, I must say. And then there's cheesecake. They've got a cheesecake element. They've become a big favorite for bachelorette parties because you've got these very studly guys, you know, whipping off their shirts at all times. We could try that in the majors, right? I mean, some guys might not want to do it. But, you know, there are no more Mickey Loliches in baseball. Let's just say, you know, and I miss Mickey. I liked him. So he honed in on a real problem. And if MLB was smart, instead of being irritated that there's an exhibit now for the Savannah Bananas in the Hall of Fame, I was there for the opening. It was hilarious. They would say, you know, we have something to learn from them. They've shown us something. How about a little humility? They're right about some things. The best example I can give you of that is I was at West Palm at the ballpark, the complex, because everybody has a complex now, that's shared by the Houston Astros and the Washington Nationals for a Savannah Bananas game. And one of these studly guys in a pink shirt comes over. He hadn't taken his shirt off yet. Those are the party animals. And he climbs into the stands and sits down next to this beautiful little boy, probably 7 years old, something like that, and hands a kid a ballpoint pen and says, will you sign my uniform? Think about that. You can't get major leaguers to stop for more than the, you know, regularly scheduled 10 seconds to sign autographs, you know, while they're walking away. In that instant, the guy who's the assistant head coach, Adam Virant, who's a recovering lawyer, looked at me and said, that kid just became a baseball fan. And it's true. That lack of intimacy, the feeling that you have no investment in the sport, in the team, in the players, is really costly. So when my predecessor, as I now like to refer to him, Rob Manfred, begins this year, 2025, by announcing that there will be a lockout in 2026, and it's the new norm, and everybody should understand that it's actually a good thing, because after all, it's like using a 22 rather than a nuclear weapon. I'm going, how is that a way to promote the sport? How do you ask people to come to pay the prices that it costs to go to a game with a family and say, we want you to be invested in our sport and care about us, but we'll screw you, in December 2026.
Jane, this game has really come to, I think, a tipping point, hasn't it? Because if indeed this collective bargaining and the restructuring of the game comes to a head after next season, do you foresee a long potential lockout or strike or, whatever both sides are going to do? And if they do indeed adjust it, will the game be changed forever in the sense that, well, here's the salary cap, here's analytic baseball, and the traditional baseball is just completely gone?
Did you see Bryce Harper get in Rob Manfred's face in Philadelphia?
I did.
I don't see how any union head, Tony Clark being the union head now, can accept a cap. I just don't, God bless him, Marvin Miller, who was the leader of first executive director of the Major League Baseball Players Association. And if only he had been the head of the newspaper guild when I was at the Post. I was fabulous and a genius. And he ran circles around, the ownership's labor people. I wonder what Marvin would say today. I mean, the result of free agency is that the sport is wealthy. Not just players, the sport is wealthy. It's a $12 billion industry now, or at least that was the figure they were using last year. So it's wealthy, but unhealthy because of these incredible inequities between franchises. So that, you're right, Mike, that is the nut of it. So what do you do? So I went to my economist buddy who told me that, we can afford to put 10-year-olds in the stands for free. And said, what do you do? Now, he came up with a sharing system where you take all the money and you add it up and you put it in a pool, and half goes to the players and half goes to the owners. And then you cut those slices into 30ths, and I'm like, Mike, that's a cap. And he goes, yeah, it's a cap. But he said, the owners would have as an incentive to accept it, cost certainty, which is something they might like to have. My friend Daniel Okrent, who is actually responsible for all the problems in baseball, he's the guy who created Rotisserie League Baseball and started us down this path of analytics. He came up with a system that's similar. Again, you this time in his view, you get an independent assessor to estimate the franchise value of each franchise. You put it all in a pot, you cut it in half goes to the players, half goes to the owners. But the owners you cut it into shares, basically, is the word he uses. But the owners who have invested the most in the franchises that are most expensive to purchase and maintain would get a healthier share of that pot, which is completely logical and maybe almost enough to persuade, the guys with those big TV contracts to do something, because it's a thoroughly corrupt system at this point. And what I came up with was, look, since they're not likely to accept a cap at this point, let's stop arguing about it. Let's take the existing luxury tax system, which, it taxes the very wealthy guys like Steve Cohen and Andrew Friedman at the Dodgers for signing people above a threshold, right? And let's elevate those taxes even more and use the money that is thrown off by it to insist that there be a floor, that there is no floor, and that you can get away with, as the A's have done for years, with pittance, $40 million, $60 million payrolls. I mean, really?
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's not equitable, no doubt.
And so give me one more second. So if you did that and you insisted on a floor of $100 million funded with even more donations from the rich teams, you might begin to chip away at the inequity. The problem is that the owners lie.
Yeah.
And they always have. And, if I'm a player, why should I trust them? The distrust is institutional and well earned. A lot of those owners, well, maybe not a lot, but owners took the luxury tax money, and instead of spending it as was required in the collective bargaining agreement, they pocketed it.
Yeah.
So when they say, there's reason, when the players say there's reason not to trust them and to believe that they're not going to use it in the right way, they're not blowing smoke.
And this ties into my question about Baltimore, because we have a new owner who, I don't know if he's treating the team as a hobby or as a business. I prefer that the owner treat it as a hobby and not their business. But I wanted to ask you where you think Baltimore fits into the equation of the annals and the history of baseball that you have covered for so many years, whether it be a consecutive game streak, the Gold Gloves, the championships. Heck, the Babe was born here. So what do you think of when you think of Baltimore baseball, Jane?
Ashanda. You know what that word means?
It sounds Yiddish.
It is Yiddish. Ashanda means a shame. My grandmother would say, "Oy, it's a shanda."
Oy vey.
Oy vey, it's a shanda. You have the most beautiful. I know PNC is gorgeous. I know Fenway and Wrigley are jewels, but Camden Yards is the most beautiful place in the world to watch a ball game, other than the Orleans Firebirds field. And to waste that asset, so they tanked deliberately for years. That certainly encouraged fans to want to come back. They tanked so that they could get higher draft choices, and they did get higher draft choices. And this is the young nucleus that they have now. So what did they do last winter? They bought no pitching. How do you do that? How does Brian Cashman, with all the money he has at his beck and call, start a season without a third baseman? I don't understand it. Baltimore ought to be a jewel. I started my baseball writing career covering Cakes and Singy and Bunbury B back at Memorial Stadium, and I have great affection for Baltimore and the franchise, and I just don't get it. I don't know David Rubenstein. He certainly came in with a lot of enthusiasm. It was great to see him out there, sucking on the hose and the water and the this and the that. But that's not good enough. And maybe they're all being cautious because the CBA, expires in December 2026, and they're all waiting. I keep hearing they're going to try to break the union. They're not going to break the union. Though I do think, and I think you can make this argument, and even some, union people will agree, that the percentage of income that's going to the highest paid players is way too much. I mean, nobody can stop Steve Cohen from paying Juan Soto $765 million to facilitate his trip to Mexico now. But why was the minimum salary $760,000, less than the NBA and the NFL?
Interesting.
Very informative, Jane. Mike, you got something else before we let Jane go?
Well, I'm afraid that if I ask her this one more question here, it's going to take a little while, but I really need to ask this because for the sake of the game, I always felt like the most prized possession of baseball was its players itself, right? And we've run into just a pandemic, I guess, epidemic of injury in the game for our pitchers. So I always remember when Buck Showalter was the manager of the Orioles, I was doing some stuff with Mass, and he always used to talk about not putting his pitchers in harm's way. oh my gosh, every pitcher is in harm's way right now. The advent of driveline baseball and max effort pitching. Can the game get out of its own way to save these young arms? Because now it's gone down into middle school Tommy Johns. And will we have enough players for even expansion down the road?
Commissioner, yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. You know, the Tommy John revolution is science is amazing. And the improvements in the surgery since Frank Jobe did the first one on strangely Tommy John is enormous. You know, this hybrid surgery and the internal brace, which is a less invasive and easier to heal from surgery, makes a huge difference. But last count, I came up with 70 so far that I can count Tommy John or Tommy John light surgeries this year. Last year, over 39% of all pitchers in the major leagues had some form of elbow surgery. Major League Baseball, in its report on this issue, which they realize is a big deal, admitted that they spent $1 billion on players sitting on the injured list. Of that, 2/3 were occasioned by arm injuries. So it is unhealthy for the players. It is unhealthy for Major League Baseball in terms of the ownership and what they have to pay. But it's more than that. It's unhealthy for the game that you're presenting and you're asking people to follow. How can, you can't root for guys who aren't on the field and they just disappear. So in Jane's MLB, I recognize there may be a better idea. I'm willing to listen, but I think we have to nudge pitching staffs back towards the style of pitching when there was an 11-man staff, when you had people who started the season still on the roster at the end of the season, when you didn't use 47 pitchers as the Dodgers did this regular season.
Crazy.
So what I would do is increase the size of the pitching staff from 13, where it now is, to either 15 or 16, funded by the savings on medical care, and create a healthy scratch list that managers could use so that the pitching staff becomes pliable. It's not fixed every day. Why should your yesterday's starter count among your 13 pitchers? He's not going to pitch the next day unless he's Sandy Koufax. Put him on the healthy scratch list. Take your two most exhausted relievers. I mean, half the relievers are gone by July, and then you're scouring everybody else's waiver wires for their rejects, thinking, "Oh, I can fix him in my pitching lab." And a day later, he's gone because guess what? He's toast. So give guys some time off in season under the supervision with medical care. Because there is a breaking point, and they know when it's coming, and at the same time, what I would propose is that you have the bigger staff, but you can only use 11 a day, and that would force managers and I guess analytics guys to start thinking about deploying assets, which is how they talk about people, differently. You start developing, and I thought it was wonderful that Aaron Boone allowed, Cam Schittler.
You can say it either way on the podcast. It doesn't matter.
to come out for the 8th inning.
Yeah, right.
Dave Roberts in Baltimore. I was there for the game when Shohei comes out and starts in place of Glass. Now has got a backache, and he throws 11 100-mile-an-hour pitches and I think 3 2/3 innings. Now this is a display of talent and machismo and all sorts of things, but maybe it's also kind of stupid.
Right.
Hey, I want you to go take care of Betty. We appreciate the time, and the book is right on the spot. What's wrong with baseball and how to fix it? I think you demonstrated how you can fix the sport here today.
More of the Bmore Baseball podcast coming right up. It's It's saving season at Lido Pizza. 99-cent refreshing iced teas for spring and summer. Or $6 calzones every Tuesday. There are tons of new deals and rewards for everyone. Exclusively at LidoPizza.com or on the Lido Pizza app. Lido Pizza, a local legend since 1955. Proud partner of the Baltimore Orioles. They say it all comes back to your roots, right? At Grassroots, high-quality cannabis is in their nature. From soil to soul, their passion for cannabis and community inspires everything they do. Try your favorite strains from their cultivar library of top-shelf flower, pre-rolls, and concentrates. Whether you're cheering from the stands or chanting for the O's at home, their crafted flower helps you curate the perfect game day. Ask for Grassroots Cannabis at your favorite dispensary in Maryland. Everyone knows Greenmount Station in Hampstead, but did you know that at Greenmount Station you can bet 7 days a week just like you're at the track? With in-person teller windows and state-of-the-art touchscreen kiosks. And with Greenmount Station's brand new Bet Park Sportsbook, you can bet on all other sports as well, wherever you are in Maryland. Spreads, money lines, live bets, props, parlays, and teasers. The Bet Parks Maryland mobile app is now live for Apple and Android devices, so you'll never miss your next big score. Just search for Bet Parks MD in the Apple App Store or on Google Play. 21 and over only. Please play responsibly. For help, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Effective Solutions, your one-stop shop for commercial contracting. Everything from excavation and site development to emergency remediation and restoration. Effective Solutions specializes in many forms of commercial and mixed-use construction. With a dedicated staff and a commitment to quality, Effective Solutions delivers every time.
On to For the Birds, Bordick, which is sponsored as always by the Maryland Lottery. Playing the Maryland Lottery responsibly means knowing what's true and what's not about your favorite games. Learn the facts and the myths by going to mdlottery.com. That's mdlottery.com. And as always, please play responsibly. So, Mike, the O's were down in terms of home runs in 2025. They hit 191 homers this past season, which was down from the 235 they smacked the previous year. And when your top home run hitters accumulate 17 home runs, that's not good. Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman, Ryan Mountcastle, Tyler O'Neill all had lower power numbers in the previous season. So my question to you is, what are the chances that the Orioles go out and sign either a power-hitting DH or more likely a power-hitting outfielder?
Well, I think we'd all like to see that as Oriole fans. Definitely book somebody in there that can hit 40 home runs. But the reality is, I think the Orioles have tried this platooning thing, and I think they really believe in that science. And picking up O'Neill, who now they're locked into for another couple years because there's no way he's going to opt out after that dismal year. You know, they're hoping that he can pop 30 home runs and maybe have another platoon guy out there to pick up the extra. If you're going to go out there and try to land a guy like Schwarber for a couple years or Bell maybe, or just a veteran bat, a presence in that lineup, you're going to have to pay too much. I just don't think the Orioles are going to be willing to do that right now. They've got a couple young, unproven hitters in that Colton Cowser and Erstad that potentially could happen, but I still think those guys are kind of seasoning along the way, trying to learn how to actually stay consistent as a major league hitter. Yeah, I would love for them to go out and get a couple veteran guys in the outfield because I don't even like the Orioles outfield defense. But when you're just talking numbers solely offensively, I just feel like the number is going to be too high financially for them to go out and land that top offensive guy out there on the free agent market. And I unfortunately think they're going to try to stay within.
Yeah, they do definitely need to add to the outfield because you can't be complacent with what you have right now. It's not sufficient. But in terms of adding a DH, I don't think that's necessary. I could see Samuel Basallo or Adley Rutschman rotating as the DH when one's not catching.
No, absolutely. So you've got a 21-year-old unproven left-handed hitter in Basallo and Adley Rutschman, who's been a year and a half, one of the worst offensive catchers in the game. So there's a lot to fill in. Yeah, we can kind of on paper say, well, we've got him. Well, but they're unproven. Beavers, we all like Beavers. Are you kidding me? The way he ended the season didn't show as going to be a frontline outfield prospect defensively or offensively. I think there are a lot of questions that need to be answered and hopefully filled. But I think this offseason is really going to show Orioles and Oriole fans what direction they're heading in. Are they really going to be able to compete with the Blue Jays now, the Red Sox, and the Yankees in the American League East? Or is this all just, hope like we've been feeling the last couple of years?
Now, going back to the original premise, what do you attribute this power outage to? Was it just a down year for a bunch of guys all at the same time?
Well, they got rid of their best offensive players at the trade deadline because of how bad they were playing. I think with the young hitters, unfortunately, in the game today, that their heads are just too clouded. There's just so much information. And listen, I think we can all advance with the analytics and try to make ourselves better. But if you're a hitter trying to hit a 95 and up fastball and you're thinking about something like creating a launch angle or your contact point out front instead of trying to get on plane with the ball, you're going to be in trouble. The game is just going to beat you. And I think so many of the Orioles hitters, where they're just such ebbs and flows, just too big. The roller coaster ride of this offensive team has been ridiculous because I just think there's too many voices, too many numbers for these guys to clear their head and just see the ball and hit ball. We need more hitters, and I think it's showing up. The more successful teams now are the teams that put the ball in play. It's not the home run that's winning and getting you into the postseason. It's the ability to make contact with the ball and put pressure on a defense because defenses have forgot how to catch the ball and make the routine play. So why not put the ball in play, even if you're not going to hit, 30 home runs every time?
Yeah, and in retrospect, it's interesting because speaking of hitting outfielders, the Orioles lose Anthony Santander in free agency. He goes to the Blue Jays, where he is a complete non-factor for a team that is headed towards the ALCS as we're speaking right now. It's amazing what they've done without Tony Batts there.
No, absolutely. And I think the Blue Jays for years have really been trying to put together a winning team. They had the youth movement where everybody thought, oh my gosh, the Blue Jays are going to be the team to beat. And it didn't click, much like the Orioles. It just never clicked. They had Bichette. They had the Biggio, who was over there, young player as well. And of course, Guerrero over at first base. But they just had a great group of young players. And now you're seeing what it's going to take to win. It's a philosophy adjustment. It's not the players. It's about putting the ball in play, putting pressure on defense, catching the ball, throwing to the right bases. Of course, they got some pretty good pitching that stayed remarkably healthy this season, which is going to be another adjustment that teams have to make in Major League Baseball. You have enough arms. How are you going to stay healthy through the course of the year?
And again, Blue Jays went from worst to first, something the Orioles fans hopefully can hang their hat on and cross their fingers and make some prayers at night. All right, let's venture beyond Baltimore, Bordy. It's brought to us by our friends at Relief Shop, Baltimore's best adult use and medical cannabis dispensary, with 700 plus unique menu items and home delivery available exclusively for medical patients, courtesy of Relief Shop. They're located right there on Cathedral Street. You can't miss them. So, Bordy, next month, MLB will announce their regular season award winners as they try and keep themselves in the news cycle during the month of November, where football just takes over. But the Baseball Writers Association of America, they're a curious bunch. They always have been to me. I was searching on the interweb looking for the nominees and who the finalists are for MVP and Cy Young and Rookie of the Year and Manager of the Year. And guess what? They're not out there. They're a state secret for some reason. It's like Mike Elias is holding it all back from everyone. I don't know what it is, but yeah. For some reason, we don't know who the finalists are, but we do when it comes to American League MVP. So let's delve into that. Aaron Judge of the Yankees versus the Mariners' big dumper, Cal Raleigh. Who do you got winning the American League MVP? I'll give you my opinion after we hear from you.
Yeah, I'm on the big dumper, baby. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what he did this year as a catcher is remarkable, just blowing just old records right out of the water. And he's playing almost every day. If he's not behind the plate as one of the best catchers in the game, he's the DH. So he is a huge factor on this Seattle team. Seattle's trying to make it to the World Series for the first time and ride at the back of the big dumper for sure. I mean, this guy's been amazing. I mean, what a catalyst to this team. And as far as this Mariners offense has always been suspect. It's been Raleigh that's lifted them. I mean, this guy, in my opinion, hands down MVP in the American League.
Wow, I'm going to have to go against you. As much as I dislike the Yankees, Aaron Judge won the batting title at .331, which is pretty unusual for a power hitter, and also blasted all those home runs, led the league in on-base and slugging percentage as well. I think it's going to be tough. That New York bias may come into play against some of these writers that maybe didn't stay up late to watch Cal Raleigh. But what he did as a catcher is unprecedented. So again, it's going to be a tough call there.
No, you're right. The batting average for one thing. I mean, Aaron Judge is exceptional. I mean, hands down. I mean, to be that good of a hitter with that incredible kind of power, his on-base percentage, everything. He's the Yankees team captain. I mean, my gosh. So yeah, I think he's the odds-on favorite. But in my humble opinion, what Raleigh did behind the plate as a catcher just blows it right out of the water. Yeah, Aaron Judge is a unicorn as well from the right side, but I'm talking about the backbone of a Major League Baseball team. What Aaron Judge does in the outfield, whatever, twiddle your thumbs out there at Yankee Stadium. He is in control of the whole game, handling the best pitching staff in baseball, the bullpen, and then the ability to go up there and hit the home runs and drive in the runs. I mean, it's pretty amazing to me.
You can't go wrong with either selection. I will say this about Judge. Once he got paid, he didn't start to tank it like we see some athletes. He got better, which is remarkable in the biggest market in our country.
Yeah.
All right, let's bring in the doc for our What's Up Doc segment with Dr. Michael Jacobs. 30 years he spent as the Orioles team doctor. Doc, during Mike Elias's press conference, which has been over a week ago, he did allude to Tyler O'Neill's signing, and that has not gone well by every aspect. Similarly, the Orioles did not sign off on pitcher Jeff Hoffman for medical reasons. Now he's succeeding with the Blue Jays. So how does the medical staff interact on these decisions when it wasn't okay for Hoffman, but it was all good for Tyler O'Neill?
Well, in today's world, now that we have a combine and whatnot, and people recognize the value of looking into medicals, that one probably goes on Mike Elias's decision-making. The Orioles staff was picked by me, so I know those guys and ladies, and Leanne's there too. And I'm sure on O'Neill, they pointed out his track record is spotty, that what we would traditionally say is use one of Mike's line, which is the biology is the biology, and say, if you're going to sign this guy, you got to figure he's going to be on the DL 1 or 2 times, possibly more. And that one's up to you. Now, in the old days, when baseball people were the GMs and managers were a little more independent, people like Buck or Dan or Roland, in particular, who I knew, would call the managers. They would call players who played with them, like Mike, and say, hey, what's the deal with this guy? Is he a guy who's going to step up, or is he a guy who's going to have to be 100%? I assume Mike does that. Whether or not he has the contacts, given his background that a Buck Showalter has, I can't say. But that one is strictly on Mike, because there's no question this training staff warned him, you got to expect this. I don't think the training staff expected to be this bad in terms of medical issues, but that one's on Mike. In the case of Trevor Hoffman, that's a little more complex.
Jeff Hoffman. Jeff Hoffman.
Yeah, not Trevor. Yeah,
right. Using your Hoffman.
I'm thinking of the San Diego reliever in the Hall of Fame of all things. In that case, that's a judgment call where there's no question, even though I haven't seen the medicals, that he probably has changes on his MRI and his cuff and his labrum that are somewhat worrisome. Then you factor that into the number of outings and innings he's pitched and the number of saves he has, and the fact that we are historically a small market team. They probably said to Mike that over a 3-year course, that 3rd year is probably kind of iffy. I did that with a number of people, Gallardo in particular, back with Dan Duquette. And in that case, Gallardo took less money for less years because he didn't have a lot of other offers. In this case, it's clear that be it ownership or Mike's general approach, he was uncomfortable with somebody who clearly had no reason not to have a good year this year, but they probably try to work down the last year to be an option year or just a 2-year contract, and Hoffman had other options he took. Now, this happened before with Balfour. When Johnson left us, the Balfour became available, and I got to admit, the owner pointed out that he was making less money than our guy, and he wanted more money this year, and our exams showed some worrisome signs, and we tried to get him to go from 2 years and $8 million each to a year and an option, and he went ballistic. I mean, ballistic. And he was a fitness guy who looked good, but nonetheless, there were findings that were worrisome. The Tampa doctor actually called our doctor, who wasn't me that year, something of a quack by not allowing him. And Tampa did sign him for $8 million a year, and they're a small market team. In the first year, he was mediocre to poor, and the next year they cut him. So it kind of goes down to you win some, you lose some. I don't think there's any question that Mike was trying to get probably 2 + 1, and Hoffman had other options and didn't bite on it. And again, you win some, lose some. When we signed Kimbrel, we were also looking at Chapman, who was pretty much identical in terms of age and medicals. And I think their prices were pretty comparable. And Mike flipped a coin and took Kimbrel, who didn't work out. And obviously, Chapman turned out to be a more serviceable pitcher. So,
all right. Well, Doc, appreciate the input and buyer's remorse on Tyler O'Neill, I'm sure. We do want to thank our loyal, dedicated sponsors, including Pappas Seafood. We couldn't do this podcast without the support of Justin Wendell and Steve Pappas. Love what they do, and they got the best crab cakes in town.
At Pappas Restaurants, we've been serving up Maryland's best crab cakes for over 5 decades, and now we make it easier than ever to get your favorites. With 4 restaurants and sports bar locations across Harford County, Baltimore County, and Anne Arundel County, you can stop in for fresh seafood, ice-cold drinks, and wall-to-wall TVs. But if you can't make it in, don't worry. We'll bring Pappas to you. Our new state-of-the-art shipping and commissary location on Bel Air Road in Nottingham means you can pick up fresh-made meals or have our famous crab cakes and seafood shipped anywhere in the country. Dine in, pick up, or ship nationwide. However you Pappas, we've got you covered. Order now at pappascrabcakes.com. They say it all comes back to your roots, right? At Grassroots, high-quality cannabis is in their nature. From soil to soul, their passion for cannabis and community inspires everything they do. Try your favorite strains from their cultivar library of top-shelf flower, pre-rolls, and concentrates. Whether you're cheering from the stands or chanting for the O's at home, their crafted flower helps you curate the perfect game day. Ask for Grassroots Cannabis at your favorite dispensary in Maryland.
I'm retired now, but I was an Orioles home run. Grand slam, actually. Took a sweet ride right into the flag court, and it was awesome. Could be awesome for you, too. If you play Home Run Riches from the Maryland Lottery, you could win instantly or be a contestant of the game and win $500 for being selected, $500 for every Orioles home run, and $5,000 for every Grand Slam. Sounds like a ball, if you ask me. Enter all season at mdlottery.com.
It's savings season at Lido Pizza. 99-cent refreshing iced teas for spring and summer, or $6 calzones every Tuesday. There are tons of new deals and rewards for everyone, exclusively at LidoPizza.com or on the Lido Pizza app. Lido Pizza, a local legend since 1955, proud partner of the Baltimore Orioles. Everyone knows Greenmount Station in Hampstead, but did you know that at Greenmount Station you can bet 7 days a week just like you're at the track? With in-person teller windows and state-of-the-art touchscreen kiosks. And with Greenmount Station's brand new Bet Park Sportsbook, you can bet on all other sports as well, wherever you are in Maryland. Spreads, money lines, live bets, props, parlays, and teasers. The Bet Parks Maryland mobile app is now live for Apple and Android devices, so you'll never miss your next big score. Just search for Bet Parks MD in the Apple App Store or on Google Play. 21 and over only. Please play responsibly. For help, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Shop Maryland's largest adult use and medical cannabis menu located at 1114 Cathedral Street in Baltimore, with medical delivery available throughout Maryland 7 days a week. Only at Relief Shop. Effective Solutions, your one-stop shop for commercial contracting. Everything from excavation and site development to emergency remediation and restoration. Effective Solutions specializes in many forms of commercial and mixed-use construction. With a dedicated staff and a commitment to quality, Effective Solutions delivers every time.
Also, thanks to super intern Grant DeVivo for his hard work and dedication. Bordy, until next week, be kind, be real, and make sure to be back for another episode. It's the Bmore Baseball Podcast, folks.
Do you know who I am? I'm kind of a big deal.